Good morning, Kansas City. Welcome to another edition of KCPS Homeroom. I'm your teacher host guy for the day. My name is Chris Odom. I'm ELA coordinator for Kansas City Public Schools, and we're going to explore this academic vocabulary here today on KCPS Homeroom. All right, so the first thing we're going to do is identify our text. It's going to be Between the World and Me by Ta-Nehisi Coates. Let's jump right in and hear a quote by him. It says, "I was a curious boy, but the schools were not concerned with curiosity. They were concerned with compliance." As early as this morning, we were hearing a student panel, and this word compliance was even mentioned as a word that wasn't so enjoyable to hear in our own student code of conduct. Very easy word for someone to pick out that wasn't really sound like a great goal, even for a student to notice that. That's just, it probably is obvious, and anything as you can imagine that we should all notice as adults as well. So, boy, sometimes we forget what just might really just not sound like what we're supposed to do. I love that quote for that reason, and it's good to read. Great readers do a lot of revisiting thinking and a lot of choosing what they believe. So the sponge you'll see up here, I'm going to give you a clue, has something to do with our presentation today. Think about what a sponge might have to do with your own vocabulary. Okay, this author is fantastic. Ta-Nehisi Coates is an American essayist, journalist, and writer. And again, the National Book Award winner. When you see a book like this that has that sticker on there, we've been featuring a couple of those here on ELA Tuesday. All right, the book is called Between the World and Me. It came out in 2015. And so today we're going to use it to look at academic vocabulary. We're going to work on some ideas on how we might grow our own. Hear a text, this one, read out loud a little bit, a really powerful passage that I'm going to read for you. And then we're going to listen and maybe list, while we're listening, some words we hear that we would call examples of academic vocabulary. And then again, we're going to try to translate all that into a guess at the author's purpose of the passage I'm reading. Okay, academic vocabulary are the words that you traditionally use when you have scholarly or academic dialogue or something you write down in the form of text. So it's not the conversational words we use in the other kind of text, that we do. Instead, this academic vocabulary is really something that we borrow and listen and take in from places that it's necessary, mainly school, scholarly situations. Sometimes there's a different academic vocabulary to different businesses and different work areas, and something that would just become kind of familiar territory. So unless you've been exposed to this academic vocabulary, then it's really not going to build itself without a little bit of work. And that's where you come in, is you are this sponge. You have this ability to find chances to soak up things, and then later down the road in some forms of writing and definitely speaking in front of other people on various topics that you have read and given great thought, you'll find that there is your academic vocabulary for you. Initially, when we're working on getting this process started in our own faith and our own thinking, and operating in this language, we use something called sentence frames. We're going to look at a couple of examples of those today. And again, we might start off just by listening. And think of all the great podcasts and things you have at your fingertips sometimes that you might choose to work toward some of these goals yourself. TED Talks are just loaded with chances to absorb great thinkers. All right, so discussing with friends and family is a way to make this more active and digest things and soak them up, right? And then squeeze them out and kind of have that challenge of maybe this time when we're sitting around talking about something, let's see what happens if we show our own academic vocabulary. If you practice this in class, right, then again, people are going to borrow some of your skills, and you're going to trade those with others that in ways that you've absorbed them from other people. Okay, so if you read complex text, and if you start to read like a writer, what if you had written this? Would you have chosen the same word choice? Sentence frames, we said, are a chance to really practice writing in a way that will require you to say things in manners that you don't always in just everyday conversation. For example, entering into a sentence, something was saying according to, between the world and me, or according to the author sometimes, and then you just use the author's last name, according to Coates, right? And then we'd put a great quote in there. Again, no one really walks around speaking in this everyday vocabulary and kind of this phrasing that we can start to absorb and take in, and then it starts to reflect itself in the way we read other writers, and then the way that we write based on those readings that we start to do. Okay, so again, can you see some words here that you probably don't use every day when you're speaking or working through your day-to-day life, unless you're in a situation that might require them. But these are big words that we can unpack that have a lot of use and a lot of purpose in a lot of subjects other than just English class that here we are on ELA Tuesday. One of my favorites of all time that was an example probably given to me of academic language back when I was in 11th grade was the word delve. And just to put it on the wall, I think even then was with chalk, and can remember seeing it. That doesn't seem like a word to me. That just, where'd that come from, and how does it take on all of this? It has a pretty cool deep meaning, right? Which means to go into something, kind of like you would with a shovel, and to delve into it. So she would encourage us to delve into topics, delve into our thinking, right? And then just that process, really, that is the academic vocabulary that even gave me instructions on what kind of process I should follow for my thinking. And really appreciated that word, because I think that was the clearest word I could have about what my goal was when I was doing writing or reading, specifically for a task a teacher had set out for me. I was to delve into it, right? I could explain that to other people now because it was so useful to me then. That's the absorbing part of this academic vocabulary. Okay, so I'm going to read one pretty good page here in this book. And there are so many of these pretty good pages and just beautiful writing that I would encourage you to take a look at this book yourself if you get an opportunity. This book, I will tell you, is framed in the way that it's written to his 15-year-old son, and the title, Between the World and Me, has some special significance that I would let you discover as you read the book yourself. Okay, so here we are. I write you in your 15th year. I am writing you because this was the year you saw Eric Garner choked to death for selling cigarettes, because you know now that Renisha McBride was shot for seeking help, that John Crawford was shot down for browsing in a department store, and you have seen men in uniform drive by and murder Tamir Rice, a 12-year-old child whom they were oath-bound to protect, and you have seen men in the same uniforms pummel Marlene Pinnock, someone's grandmother, on the side of a road. And you know now, if you did not know before, that the police departments of your country have been endowed with the authority to destroy your body. It does not matter if the destruction is the result of an unfortunate overreaction. It does not matter if it originates in a misunderstanding. It does not matter if the destruction springs from a foolish policy. Sell cigarettes without the proper authority, and your body can be destroyed. Resent the people trying to entrap your body, and it can be destroyed. The destroyers will rarely be held accountable. Mostly they will receive pensions, and destruction is merely the superlative form of a dominion whose prerogatives include friskings, detainings, beatings, and humiliations. All of this is common to black people, and all of this is old for black people. No one is held responsible. There is nothing uniquely evil in these destroyers or even in this moment. The destroyers are merely men enforcing the whims of our country, correctly interpreting its heritage and legacy. It is hard to face this, but all our phrasing, race relations, racial chasm, racial justice, racial profiling, white privilege, even white supremacy, serves to obscure that racism is a visceral experience, that it dislodges brains, blocks airways, rips muscle, extracts organs, cracks bones, breaks teeth. You must never look away from this. You must always remember that the sociology, the history, the economics, the graphs, the charts, the regressions, all land with great violence upon the body. Okay, so did you hear some words and make a little list that you might consider academic vocabulary? And let's go to this next slide and call it the pick it and prove it task. And that's a little bit of alliteration there. It makes it a little cooler when you do it, right? So just please pick it and prove it, and pick 3 words and explain what they have to do with the overall meaning of this little reading selection. And if you were just grabbing them out of the air, because certainly that makes it more challenging, I just wish I could hand you this book and you could say, oh, here they are. But let me do something for you and just throw around a chance for you to hear some of the words that we might hear, like the word pummel. If we might hear the word endowed, authority, we see the word destruction, unfortunate. We hear the word authority again. We hear the word entrap. We hear the word destroyed. We hear pensions, dominion, prerogatives, detainings, beatings, humiliations. The language in this second page, reading it, you can just feel it kind of building. But this list, right, this word visceral, this word supremacy and privilege, chasm, again, words that if we are not quite sure about their meaning, it's probably because, again, I don't walk around talking about chasms every day. And you have every right to then say, whoo, what does that mean? That is an interesting word, but I don't think I know what it is, right? And when you discover what a chasm is, and in this case, not just a chasm, but a racial chasm, that's C-H-A-S-M, then you really discover something about separation, right? And division, and just the meaning of a word that to you might seem unknown and something you don't use every day. Okay, so as you go about and you're out ready to go read and do some more thinking yourself, I want you to find another paragraph like the one that I modeled for you today. And again, sort it out and look for some of the words you consider to be academic vocabulary. And then do your own pick 3 and see if you could tell me which of the 3 words you think really is central to the overall meaning. And just keep thinking about it. Why did you select those words? How did they have something to do with the overall purpose of the text? And then, was it clear to you the purpose of the text once you really concentrated on the words? In some ways, I think a great author is doing more than one thing with their purpose. Do you think this was an example? Did you hear really beautiful writing in some ways that might even entertain surrounding such an informative piece, just loaded with detail and information about people and their lives, but also in the combination of those 2 elements, you can hear how they might multiply, times each other in some way, and become persuasive or a call to action and make people feel a need for justice and a need to pay other due respect to something they may not have thought of the same way before. So really magic chances to see how academic vocabulary opens up thinking and ways of discussion that everyone needs to be a part of. So let's go on and just concentrate on your own ability from here with this idea of growing your academic vocabulary. And let's go out on this quote, because I think it's one of the coolest quotes that I've found in a while. And I hope you've had a great time with us this morning on ELA Tuesday, working on academic vocabulary and featuring the wonderful work of Ta-Nehisi Coates, Between the World and Me. Have a great Tuesday.